H. Herbert's 100 harem. It's quiet. Too quiet. He notes as he sets himself up for whatever the punchline is. He knows why it's quiet. It's movie time. The children are all being enthralled by whatever edutainment show they're watching today. He picks his way through the large suite and pokes his head in. He recognizes the show, Annabelle's Adventures. It focuses on pattern recognition and teaches how to pronounce simple words in 3 different languages, all while watching an archaeologist solve ancient puzzles, rather than digging delicately in the dirt and meticulously putting an ancient pot back together to see if there's writing on it. He slips in and sits down next to the girls as quietly as he can. He's feeling a little self-conscious about his stealth skills, considering he got punked by that strange pistol. Of course, people would use neural links and replace standard triggers for a modified safety. Not only is it a nearly perfect fake out to catch a dodge-happy bastard like him, but it means that jamming a safety to Owen is a much harder thing to do, as it's simpler and more robust. Meaning his stick a knife into the top of a gun trick won't keep working, even though he's only gotten to do that twice. Well, 3 times, but making the gun lose containment and start spraying plasma everywhere is an entirely different animal. Thankfully, Zedin have horrible peripheral vision, and Yaoya vision is actually really aligned to movement, especially when things are dark. So his slowly creeping in has gone unnoticed, which leads to the question as to how she announced his presence. The girl to his left starts to turn her head, and he leans back at the same pace to avoid her line of sight. "He should be home soon, right?" she asks, and he cannot resist. The setup is perfect. He sits up, and for all intents and purposes, glides into her line of sight the moment she refers to him. "Herbert!" The exclamation of his name is a little loud, but thankfully doesn't startle the small army of children watching with rapt attention as Annabelle counts off her brushstrokes on the switch to the next part of the ancient mechanism. "You're back," his Yaoya wife to the other side exclaims, and he's hugged between the 2 women. "When did you get here?" "Right before you asked about me, so I couldn't resist," he says in Marika. The Yaoya looks backwards in hopes of seeing a thermal trail. But he's not walking around barefoot, so he hasn't been leaving one. "Staying off the field since you got hurt?" "For now. We've got people looking into artificial aging and," he begins to exclaim, "and the sudden note!" From Marika startles the babes a little, and things are paused, and a quick bit of scurrying around is done to keep everyone happy and healthy. Of course, his return gets out during that. The end result is a lot of hugs, some light laughter at the summation of his day being interrogation turned matchmaking, which he refuses to elaborate further on, and Herbert volunteers to get everyone a drink, a snack, and the diapers everyone will be needing, as it's more than likely a few of the children have made a mess of themselves during the show and not noticed. He arrives back while Skitterly, the Paris that had taken a liking to him long ago, finishes wrapping himself around his upper torso and comes to a rest on his shoulder. It had been interesting to learn that Paris were technically mildly poisonous. They would numb and slow down other species on top of tasting so horrible only a truly depraved creature would even consider them. The exact horrible flavor was determined by the color, or rather, the color was a result of the chemicals that made them taste so bad, and there was apparently a rainbow of horrific taste to be had. "So how long until the old ladies decide to actually come off the ceiling?" he teases out loud, letting everyone know that he might not have looked up, but he knows what's up. "Old ladies?" one of his in-laws asks in an affronted tone. She drops down behind him and looms overhead. "Are you or are you not centuries old?" he asks as he leans back and looks directly up at the frowning "That doesn't make me old. Lady, by law, I only need a permit for your bedroom to qualify as an archaeology site." He snarks and her jaw drops. "Really, boy? Really?" "Mom," one of his wives says, "relax, I'm not really upset, just stunned that such an innocent-looking child is so bold," she says, and Herbert chuckles. It sounds like a giggle. "Yeah, I was told a lot I looked like a child star growing up. My mom and dad were worried about me being kidnapped. Thankfully, I'm proper ugly when I'm an adult, so I don't have to worry about that later," he says, and there's some scoffing and a few protests saying he's not ugly. "Oh, do you think that my grandchildren will be in danger of that?" his in-law asks as the rest climb down from the ceiling at a more sedate pace. "Possibly the risk is there due to them being little boys. Of course, anyone that tries will have maybe minutes left to live, And that's only if I'm on the other side of Centris at the time. They'll have hours left if I'm off-world when it happens, Herbert says. Again, you say it with such confidence, but you sound so... She cuts herself off while smiling into one of her hands. At this point, he's tired of leaning back and turns around to face her properly. I know it's a hard knocks life, he says, and his tone matches the song. That was a quote, wasn't it? It was, he says and refuses to elaborate. You're not going to tell me where from, are you? Consider it your homework. Homework? That, she begins to say before Herbert's communicator starts to go off in a specific tone. Emergency, he exclaims before pulling it out as he steps away from the building crowd. Go. Hostiles engaged. The Darnaxian concurrence is proving difficult, the voice of Mr. Heron's assistant states. Officer Blanche is directly to the point about things. Will further details be sent as they become relevant? Yes, none at the moment beyond hostile engagement. I'm already putting together a report for when you come back in to assist Miss Woven. Is this understood, Agent Jameson? It is. Godspeed and keep our boys and girls safe, he says. That is the intent. Officer Blanche tells him, and the line goes dead. Who was that? I don't know, he lies. Excuse me? Officer Blanche is deep cover drone operative. Their stint in paperwork means that they're working a blank-faced prosthetic body with zero features beyond being bipedal. I have not inquired as to who they are, Fulham. And the end is the lie. He knows Blanche, helped them set up their systems. He personally helped examine and clear them for intelligence work. The promotion was a bit of a surprise, but after examining the sheer amount of work they got done, he had to agree with it. The fact that it would be so unexpected for a Lidris to do as such a thing just made it even better. I'm sorry, how does command work in your division? We have a rotating command structure. I'm part of it. Everyone always has an assistant and a short shift. Keeps us alert, and the assistant and the current head can check each other if someone is compromised for any reason. Not to mention, I'm literally the only one on rotation with public identification. So you're the weak link. Bait, he replies. You're bait? I'm the obvious target, which is why even off duty, I have numerous hidden bodyguards and nearby backup. He explains. It's enough so he doesn't clarify that if someone wants to compromise undaunted intelligence, there may be person whose location is publicly available. Him, which means they need to declare war with not only the Undaunted, but the Versi system and its allies as well. He's public, but in an untouchable political position and with innumerable hidden guns and knives, waiting to destroy anyone enough to ignore that threat. So everyone stares at the obvious bait, too cautious to take a bite, but too distracted to look elsewhere. Where are they? She asks, and he checks his communicator. The IFF tracking on it tells him all he needs to know. Nearest group are acting as steady customers to a little cafe not far from here. Human appearance and appetites means she's getting not just free advertisement, but they're paying her to act as eye candy for her store, so she's not complaining about the extra business. He says and doesn't mention the several hidden sniper nests that have line of sight on the embassy. If someone wants to hit the embassy, then they're getting hit by rail shot, and harder targets are getting pop gun fire as several different squads slip in to hit them on the flanks. To say nothing of what Herbert and his wives will do, while only some of them want to be hunters, and hunters are not soldiers. Hunters are incredibly dangerous when motivated. And what motivates a woman and mother more than her children, their home and their husband, under siege? You're holding things back? Yes, I work in intelligence. Even if I never go onto the field or have a classified document put in front of me, I still have to hold a lot back. Names and faces of my coworkers, where they are, what gear we have. I give that away and people die. People I like die, probably horribly, Herbert says. And what are you fighting that is so terrible to men? His in-law challenges, and Herbert considers. Well, it is unclassified, but still not advertised. He indicates for her to lean closer, and he gets close to her earhole. We have made many moves against Dark Cabal heirs. There are many gangs and groups infesting Centris that are controlled, founded by, or influenced by the survivors of the Dark Cabal rebellion. The smarter ones who had that vicious mind control power. The ones that either threw their fellows to the rebelling slaves to get out alive, or were smart enough to see the break coming and left before. The smarter ones are causing, Problems. He whispers to her and her jaw drops. He then pushes it back up into place and steps back. That a good enough answer? It is, but that was more than I expected. That was unclassified information. But we're not advertising it, he says, and she nods. You certainly like to play with the big girls, don't you? She asks, and he snorts. Was that deliberate? He asks her. Partially, she admits. Moom! Harini, her daughter, protests. The show comes to full end with the ending jingle cutting off. Any further conversation is washed away fairly quickly as everyone rushes around to pick up the babes, and Herbert goes around from fussy child to help calm them. His sons with the Yaoya can see an infrared, so the lights coming on a little brighter are not to their liking, but it doesn't hurt them. His Zedden-born sons, instead, don't have their eyes open at all. That's because their skulls are made of an axiom-laced material, just as hard and flexible as bone, but capable of detecting ultraviolet light and axiom through the skin, but like their mothers, with no peripheral vision or any ability to look down without turning the head. However, he's made sure to have all their eyes checked. They can see perfectly fine, they just prefer the sight their skulls give them. A bit more rushing as the rest of his girls who had been doing other things while the kids were watching TV return, and he gives out the hugs and kisses they demand and helps out by rushing around to pass diapers where they're needed. Recovery from the TV show takes a total of 20 minutes before everything is solved, and things are just a flurry until the early dinner. The children are ravenous compared to their mothers, and he holds off on his own appetites until he's sure all his children are being fed and takes a few moments with his few daughters. The cream had worked far better than anyone expected, and from what he understands, read on official reports, Ambassador Hlela was actually boasting about him having just over 100 sons. His few twins, triplets and such, had pushed his sons into the hundreds. He had 11 daughters to care for as well. His little Zedden girls like grabbing him around the face and generally think it's hilarious when he slowly shifts into view from the side. They then generally grab at his lips and pulling. His Yaoya daughters are squirmy and happy little girls with a funny giggling that includes their facial claws chattering against each other. Still, despite looking like their big brother, he's their father, and glad of it, he doesn't want any of them to feel left out, even if they are just a few months old.